Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there? So I am so excited for my guest today, Amy Quesenberry. And if you are new to the Brave Women at Work podcast, I used to many moons ago, I would stalk people on LinkedIn or, try to find people on my own. And we're getting to a point in the show where well over 200 episodes now where I get to interview colleagues and friends. And Amy is in that category. And so Amy and I met through Shelia Higgs Burkhalter and the Infuse Compassion into Companies conference. And I'm so glad, Shigs, that you introduced me to Amy. So when Amy and I met, she shared her Start with Compassion model, and I was blown away. It was like a download. She'll say that on our show, but it was such a download and so wise. The whole concept is that if we start with compassion with ourselves, with one another, and within our companies, it can truly drive us to have better relationships, more productivity, higher satisfaction, overall happiness, and just so much more. So as I say, as a recovering perfectionist, starting with compassion, that concept is easy to understand. I'm like, oh yeah, start with compassion. And then it becomes difficult to implement. I'm like, oh, I have to start with compassion. So if you struggle with perfectionism or you have a tendency to wear a mask or leverage other armor, like we've talked about on the show, people pleasing, to look or move through the world and work a certain way, you have that kind of facade. This conversation is definitely for you. And I especially love this conversation because Amy was vulnerable and so brave in real time. So I'm just going to leave that as a spoiler alert. But it was just so cool for her to be walking her talk right in the middle of our conversation. So thank you, Amy, for being the amazing person and now best-selling author that you are. So kudos and congratulations. So during the podcast, Amy and I chatted about what led her to participate in the latest Brave Women at Work women's anthology, which is Brave Women at Work: Lessons in Letting Go. And yes, she reached Amazon bestseller along with the other authors. So huge congratulations are in order. Why her title is called No More Hiding, and what she hopes readers take away from her story. The story that led to the development of her model, Start with Compassion, and her company of the same name. And what starting with compassion means to Amy and why it is just so important in our world today. So here is more about Amy. Amy Quesenberry is a client and employee experience expert and former global business consultant. For over 20 years, she has advised leaders and organizations on human capital, talent management, and organizational development. Amy has dedicated her career to guiding companies to use compassion to help leaders and employees achieve career performance and live life simultaneously. As a speaker, best-selling author, and coach, she now brings these decades of insight to businesses and audiences everywhere. Amy has 20 years into a high-performing career in corporate HR for very competitive STEM sector when it happened. She was building and supporting teams, coaching, mentoring, developing programs to engage employees in achieving positive outcomes. But then herself, she was frustrated, angry, and depressed. She felt lost. Man, that just hits me so hard. Broken. Employee burnout is not new, and it's certainly no secret to corporations everywhere. But how could this happen to her, someone so well known in the business of talent management? Amy took a step back, holding a master's in organizational leadership with a focus on strategic innovation and change management. She was no stranger to analysis. So she began to take a closer look, and then she found it. The problem was in a factor we too rarely talk about, which is compassion for ourselves and for others. She developed into her signature Start with Compassion framework, which now guides leaders and their organizations to use compassion to catalyze their best, most satisfying lives at work and home. Today, Amy is a sought after motivational speaker, workshop leader, and co host of the Infuse Compassion podcast. She is also the co creator of the annual Infuse Compassion into Companies ICIC conference. And then, of course, her books include Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go. And she also has another book coming out in 2026. She and her work have been featured at Women Tech Network Global Conference, ICIC Conference, Small Business Expo, and numerous company leadership workshops and podcasts. She will be a featured speaker or was a featured speaker at the Leadership Conference in April 2025 with Jackie Cetera. She has found more career and personal satisfaction than ever before, and she's ready to help you and all of us get there too. When not at work, Amy balances her life with cooking, reading, writing, running, riding her Peloton, which I know she loves, and spending time with her family and friends. She lives in sunny San Diego, California with her husband and two beloved dogs. So, if Brave Women at Work, if the show has helped you professionally or personally, please be sure to share it with a family member, friend, or colleague. And then, of course, you know that ratings and reviews, they matter. I wish they didn't, but they do. So, if you could leave a rating or review, and of course, hit the subscribe button so you can get this show, Brave Women at Work, as part of your weekly feed, I would so appreciate it. Also, if you haven't downloaded my freebies from my website, check them out at bravewomenatwork.com. The three freebies are 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and our most popular, getting paid 10 negotiation tips. You know, I love women getting paid and getting the benefits they deserve. So that's why I've created not only the negotiation, but also minding your mindset, which goes right into everything we talk about with those affirmations and managing your imposter syndrome. So again, you can download those right off of my homepage. There are these 3 squares right underneath the larger image. You can download them at bravewomenatwork.com. Also, as a final announcement, the hardcover for Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go, it is launching here in just a few short days on June 24th, 2025 at time of recording. By sharing by sharing the stories, Amy and all of the authors in this cohort, they give us a masterclass in surrendering relationships, habits, and other patterns that no longer serve us. And I have to tell you, this one hit me so, so hard. There's so much goodness in this book. And you can pick up your copy on June 24th on Amazon. Okay, let's welcome Amy to the show. Well, hello, Amy. Welcome to Brave Women at Work. How are you today?
Oh, I am so good, Jen, and I am so honored and excited to be here with you today.
Oh my word. I am so everybody listening, you have no idea. Amy and I have been we've been connected. We've been connected the last several months. And
Yes.
don't you think we've done some good work? I think we've done some really good work together.
Incredible, incredible work. Just let me just say, can I just like talk for a minute about you,
Yeah, of
Jen?
course.
Okay. Jen sees you.
Oh,
Like Jen sees you. And I started a journey with Jen through Brave Women at Work and the marketing piece for that. And I loved how Jen was showing up, that I said, "Hey, listen, I'm in the middle of a rebrand and I'm struggling to tell my web designer and my SEO people like who clearly articulate who I am. I can get on a stage and I can talk all day long, but to come out and be clear on who I am and what I bring to the world so clearly that we can write it down, which is a whole different level of articulation,
yeah.
and ask Jen to come in and help me with my rebrand strategy. And she did. And just held us all together. Communications, SEO, the web designer, all of us and me brought us all together. And she was able to articulate my vision. She was able to see who I was to a level that even beyond what I could see. So, Jen, thank you.
Oh my word. Thank you. You make me cry. We haven't even even gotten into it, but thank you.
We
Thank
haven't
you.
even gotten into it, and tears are coming down.
Yeah. Anyway, so everybody, before we jump right in, so what Amy's talking about is a whole new like birthed business that's coming. A new business baby is about to be born. It's called Amplify Women. It is not taking the place of Brave Women at Work. It's just another one because I've decided to be a serial entrepreneur. And so you guys will hear more about that in future podcasts and just like the other work that I'm doing in my world. So Amy has decided to like cross all the lines and we're doing all the projects together. So Amy, it is so exciting to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be
Yes.
here.
So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you and anywhere you want to start in your story and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah. I was thinking about that. And I think it's a combination, like just to start off from a summary, it's it's a combination of people believing in me, advocating for me, like seeing my potential before I saw it. And I mean young, like when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my early 20s, my early 30s, believing in me, not pushing me, but giving little thoughts of there's there's more out there for you, Amy. There's more out there for you.
Mm,
And then me hearing that and grabbing a hold of that. And with that, it's perseverance and grit, like full
mm-hmm.
on, like just grit, where saying I want this so bad, and I want it necessarily, but I believe this in my soul that I'm supposed to be doing whatever it is, that I'm going to put everything on the line and go do it. A perfect example is I moved from my small town when I was 25,
Mm,
sight unseen, San Diego, Modesto to San Diego. Okay, it's about
mm.
500 miles away.
Wow.
And I, a friend of a friend of a friend, knew somebody who was subletting a room in their condo for the summer.
Hmm.
I had already made my mind up to go to San Diego, but I didn't know how am I going to get there? I don't have a job. I have 2 grand in my pocket.
Wow.
And the universe just shows up. Like, okay, here's this person. We have a 20-minute phone call. We figure out we could live together for 3 months. Packed everything that could fit in my ready teal green Geostorm. Teal
Love
green
it.
Geostorm, 1996. Don't even mess around, right? And
I love
everything that didn't fit went into a storage unit and drove in. I had in the CD player, I rotated Alanis Morissette and Tom Petty.
Of
And
course you did.
of course I did. Oh my God, it was so amazing. And I am getting ready to have this next year. I think I'm at 29 years right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Next year will be 30 years I've lived here.
Wow, that's amazing.
But it's that belief of like sometimes thoughts come to me and I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. But other times it's like there's this knock, knock, knock. There's this knock, knock, knock. And when that knocking keeps coming back, you feel it in your bones, you feel it in your gut. I listen to that. I listened to that. And that was a call. And my call, you're going to love this. My call started with, I know there's a strong woman somewhere in here.
Wow.
But living at home in this small town, so close to my parents, relying on them for everything, still living these negative habits that I had in high school, unhealthy behaviors. I was like, I felt in my heart, I'm never going to be the woman that I know is inside me if I stay here. And it's time for me to leave. And so I came to San Diego on my own, again, 2 grand in my pocket by myself, didn't know a soul, and I figured it out. And I think that that's part of Brave Women at Work. We all find ourselves in situations where we're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through the next minute, the next hour, the next day, the next month, the next year. But we figure it out, that perseverance, that grit, that tenacity, right? That
Oh,
fire.
so good. Oh, I just been all day. So everybody, I took off this entire day to do just podcasting all day. How fun is that? I mean, just like I'm getting inspired, like hour by hour by hour. Before this day is over, Amy, I'm gonna be like levitating off of the ground.
I love it.
So I have to ask you, okay, so we got connected because we were talking about like Spider Woman before we like hit record and all the connections between the amazing women in our community.
Yeah.
So Hope and I, saying we, so Hope Mueller and I, we met you, I think, through Shelia Higgs Burkhalter, so Shigs, who is just a whole other level of connector, an amazing woman.
Hmm.
And she was speaking at your conference, correct?
Hmm. Yes, she was the keynote speaker. Yes. And then I did one of the talks the next day. And it was so sweet. It was so sweet. She could have chosen like four different talks to go into. And so here I am on the stage. I don't see her in the audience. And I start out with talking about how amazing. Did everybody see Shigs last night? Oh my gosh, she was amazing. I'm talking about how wonderful she is. And all of a sudden, I see her in my audience. And I went, God, you chose me. God. And we were fast friends. We were fast friends. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And then I think that I don't know how, so you tell me. So what was the story that led you to contribute to Brave Women at Work Lessons and Letting Go? Because I don't know if I would know that.
Yeah. Well, again, we started out with me saying women that saw me, advocated for me, really creating opportunities for me. And I don't know what Shigs saw, but I think she saw something that said Amy had to let go of a lot of stuff to be able to get to this start with compassion work that she does. I'm
Hmm.
making this story up in my head. I don't know why she came to me as an author, but I think, being who Shigs is, I think she sees
Yeah,
things.
like the bigger picture. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think she saw that. And so I took in the suggestion of Amy, would you be interested? And I sat and I thought for it for a minute and I thought, oh yeah, I have a story to tell. I certainly have a story to tell because people who have heard me on my own podcasts and other podcasts that I've been a guest on, there is a lot of anger and resentment and bitterness and if you've read my chapter in the book
Hmm.
also, I talk about some of this, this unhealthy behaviors of how I was showing up. Well, I was showing up that way because what hurt people, right? And I
Hmm.
was very hurt and wounded. And in order for me to really transform my life and create the life that I wanted, a healthier life with a quiet mind, right? This is really important, a quiet mind where there's not shame and guilt and resentment running through, but peace and contentment inside our hearts and our minds. I had to forgive. I had to let go. I had to say, there's a lot of stuff that happened. Okay.
Hmm.
Some you've healed, others you haven't. But if you're going to walk around with this 50-pound pack on your back, how are you really going to show up as the bright, beautiful light person that you can be to let the goodness and the beauty in if you're carrying this around with you? So I had to let that go, different iterations of letting go, right?
Hmm.
And so it was that story.
So your chapter is called No More Hiding, and I've read it several times, mostly with tears. Like I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
crying and like cleansing, not because I've had the same experience, but because I feel your healing through your own chapter. You also said something in our pre-launch for the book, which was really hit me hard, like how hard December was for you. So, Jackie Satera, who is one of the other authors in the book, and I've already decided like we have to take back December for you somehow. Like we're gonna do some sort of party or something to like help you take December back. But
Yeah.
tell me about that because your story, I don't want to steal the thunder, but I think we should just give like a little taste tester, right? Like you probably thought when you were entering this project that you had already healed. I'm in air quotes for our not, like our non-YouTubers. And here you go, finding out that Hope's like lovingly calling you out, who is another angel, I think, in your life, like to call out the release and healing of your full story. So,
Mhm.
what was that like to go through that, even though you probably thought you had already like let it go and healed it, and now you're still hiding? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, it's why I call this last December the darkest December. That's what I've named it. And I think
Yeah,
there's probably some blog posts I'm going to eventually do where I'm going to talk a little bit more about it.
yeah.
But it truly was the darkest December that I think I've ever had because one of the things that Hope so lovingly shared with me after I submitted the first version of the chapter, she was like, "Yeah, you're hiding. You are hiding from your readers, and that's not fair." And she was so beautiful about it because she said, we can remove this piece and you will have a fantastic chapter. It'll still be great. But what you can't do is leave it with this little because your readers are going to be stuck here and they won't be able to get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, and regardless of what you decide to do, my recommendation is to write your story. Nobody has to see it. It doesn't have to go in the
Mm,
book, but to write it. And she said, my first two books, this is Hope speaking. My
yes.
first two books, Hopi and Counting Hope. She said it was a beautiful cathartic experience for me to just get this out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took her advice and I wrote about the abuse. I wrote about the abuse to a level that I've never processed before. And so when you do that, I don't know the science behind it,
Mm-hmm.
but I would imagine when you write, and I don't know if you do because you're marketing and communication, so maybe you can add to this, but I would imagine there's just a completely different level of our processing when we take something and we put it into the world in script of some sort. And I hand wrote it. I didn't type it. I
Oh,
hand wrote
wow.
it first.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, glass of wine in one hand, pen in the other, and just felt it. Like wrote it. I didn't
Felt
even
it.
read it. I didn't even read it at first. I just wrote it. And then the next morning I read it and I went, no wonder. Like, no wonder you were so mean to so many people for so long, right?
Well, you were saying that 50-pound pack, like
Yeah,
you were unpacking that pack and lightening your load.
yeah, yeah. And so when we get hurt in life, right? My experience is that it's kind of like your hand getting burnt on the stove. You
Yeah.
may be hesitant to go back to the stove again. So I was not advocating for myself. I thought I was, but not to the level that I needed to. And so when we talk about the transformation that came as a result of the darkest December, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, we're not hiding anymore. We're not going to sit back and make it okay for people to treat us less than. That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to sit around and be quiet when somebody is just bad behavior, just bad behavior. Like that's not, I'm not going to cancel you. I'm not going to play any of those games. But what I'm not going to do is like act like it's okay for me to sit here and watch somebody else be a bully, be abusive, treat somebody with less than the the dignity, the kindness and compassion and respect that we all deserve just as human beings walking on this planet. And that's the big shift that's changed for me.
Just I think I hear a stronger voice, right? Like you may have thought you had a strong voice before, and now is it even more clear, stronger than it was before?
Yes, and I think the difference is that like right now in this moment, I'm I'm passionate. There's some emotion there, but
Yeah.
this is what I've seen. When I go into this strength mode, like the reckoning story for anybody who
Yeah.
has read the chapter, maybe you're going to, the reckoning story, I was not emotional. I was looking straight into that person's eyes. I was calm, I was quiet, and that's how I get now. So I don't go to emotion, but I go to like there's this quiet in me. Whereas before I was caught up in the emotion of the
Oh,
trauma
I
from the
see. Yeah,
past.
yeah. Yeah, yes.
I let that go. And so now I can be present and not get caught in the emotion of the moment and instead just bring the, is that really how you want to be showing up right now? Like, is
So like
that,
a quiet strength, like coming from a place of like you don't have to be loud or emotional or
yeah.
anything. You can just be like, yeah, like you just said, do you really want to show up that way now? Like
Mhm.
or this way? So for I don't want to steal too much from this, but for anyone that hasn't read the book, give me like the overarching. I heard, obviously, I know that I'm not going to share your story. You are, right? So I heard abuse. I heard how hurt people hurt people. So give us like the overarching story, high level. I don't want to steal everything, but just so that people understand what your chapter is about.
Yeah. You know, my chapter, I believe, is really about self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. I agree
It's
with that.
about, yeah, it's really about being a searcher of self
Mm-hmm.
and open to what's happening around me and paying attention and saying, hold on, like sometimes we can find ourselves. I don't know if this analogy is gonna work, but we'll see it because it just popped in my head. You find yourself in a swimming pool,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Maybe the swimming pool is a little colder, a little warmer than what you would like. You don't need to stay in that swimming pool. Okay. But if you get out of that swimming pool and you look around, maybe you climb up to a mountain, maybe you stand on the diving board, you may be able to see that there's another swimming pool over there and you may want to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's not sitting in the pain and saying, I'm powerless, but it's saying, this is where I am right now. I know I want more, better, different. One of those, maybe all three. What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do because I'm not comfortable in this pool?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? And so it's really that story. And through that story, I call it a desperation. I actually created a framework called Start with Compassion. And
Mm-hmm.
Start with Compassion literally gave me the tools to first show myself compassion and then be able to show up as more compassionate in the world, which is really what I wanted. I my number one goal, my self goal every day is to show up in a way that when I go to bed at night, I lay my head on my pillow and I don't have any guilt or shame or less than feelings because of how I showed up. It doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes, but that I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. You deserved better. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make but here's what I try to not do. I try to not push, push, push and act like it didn't happen. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Let me pause because I feel like I've gone off a bit. So,
No, it's totally fine. So with compassion, I've learned that the anecdote for perfectionism, a lot of the dark days I've had, dark periods, was compassion. But I'd like to know why compassion? Like how did did it come through, like the idea of start with compassion, the model, which I'd like you to define. We'll get through all that. How did that get born? Was that born out of just like a download? Was that born out of a dream? Like, how did the idea of like leveraging compassion as a healing tool happen?
Yeah, so great question. So I I have over 20 years of HR experience. 18 of that has been in a call center, business process outsourcing, BPO for short, and and environment. I've traveled all over the world. I've worked with teams, and my whole purpose for the majority of the work that I did was to create an optimal employee and client experience. What I saw in traveling the world and working with these teams is that when when leaders led and taught with compassion, a servant leadership style, where they
Mm-hmm.
really put the employee first and their needs second, where they were able to effectively balance the client's needs and the employee's needs, I saw productivity, engagement, creativity, innovation increase. And I saw this happen because employees felt safe. They felt seen. They felt heard. So here I am in this world. Okay. I'm 14 years at an organization. I'm sorry, 15 years. 14 of those, I'm in a remote role. Talk about
Mm.
hiding. Talk about hiding. This was back in the day where we
So you
didn't
were
have,
fully remote even before remote.
oh, yeah. I
Okay.
started doing remote in between 2008 and 2009.
Wow. Whole
Yeah.
different universe back then.
Whole
Okay.
different universe. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't have to turn our cameras on, so I could hide.
Yeah, you
Nobody,
really, really were hiding.
I really was hiding. And so I could fake it. I could fake it that I was happy. I could fake it that I was okay. Nobody saw my struggle. Nobody saw how depressed, how upset, how whatever, all of this that I was feeling. And I was feeling it, Jen, because I was putting so much emotion and time and work and effort into the work I was doing. I loved what I was doing. I love people. And this company that I worked for, I loved this company. They had given me so much over the years. I was so grateful, but I lost myself in the process. So,
Mm-hmm.
toward the end of my tenure, start with compassion. I call it a tap, 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 like a knock, knock, knock.
Yeah.
It started showing up in my head. Start with compassion, start with compassion. I don't know what it means. Start with compassion. So then a friend of mine who's an attorney, I tell her about it. I'm like, yeah, there's this thing, start with compassion. Keeps on showing up in my head. I feel like there's some work that I'm going to be doing around this. And this was around the time that I was getting ready to resign from the organization. So
Hmm.
I'd already made up my mind. I hadn't told them yet, but I knew there's something else. I don't know what's next, but I know there's something else. And she goes, that's gold. You need to trademark that. So I did. Still don't know what's going to happen. So then I resign. Okay. I take 3 months off. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to work anywhere else. I'm so broken at this time. I just need to sit with me. So I take 3 months off,
Mm-hmm.
and the majority of my time I'm in my backyard. I'm journaling. I love to handwrite. So I'm journaling. I'm praying. I'm meditating, and I'm just sitting with myself. And as the healing, letting go of these layers of the pain and the fakeness and the inauthenticity and all of this, I'm letting all of that go. And I'm feeling I, I created the framework. I created the start with compassion. So you asked, was it a download? I believe it was a download. I believe this framework comes from somewhere else. And and then so I've got the acronym, and then I build out the descriptors. And then I start talking about it with my closest people, my friends, my family, and they're saying, Amy, this is amazing. The world needs this. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with
You're like,
it.
I don't know. I just received the knock knock and the tap tap. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was in 2022.
Okay.
2022, this happened. Yeah. And so since that time, it's turned into several motivational talks, workshops at organizations, keynote talks, all sorts of stuff that I've gone and I've made happen. And I'm all over social media, and I'm like, you know, if you're not happy with how things are showing up, just start with compassion. Just start with compassion,
Mm.
right?
Oh, such a good story. So tell us the acronym, right? We don't have to go through every descriptor, but start
Yeah.
with like the acronym just so people understand there is methodology. So it's not just like, hey, start with compassion. There's an acronym you said. So I want to define that.
Let me just, before I get into this, because it's kind of showed up a little bit. I have a speech impediment. It's sometimes it makes a guest appearance. Okay. I took 12 years of speech therapy, and sometimes I stutter. So today, this is I can tell on the word connected, I was going to stutter, and I was like, okay, I just need to call it out.
That's
Um,
totally fine. All the love.
all the love. And so, but it's funny because as soon as you name it, right? As soon as you name it, it goes, okay, thank you. And
It's
I'm
like,
gonna go,
okay, okay.
I'm gonna go sit over here now. Thank you for acknowledging. The reason, big part of who you are, Amy, is because of this, your speech impediment. So let's not hide it. All right. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, connected is the C.
Okay.
How are we connecting with people? Understanding that we're all connected to each other. O is open-minded, right? If we can just show up as more open-minded, understanding your path, Jen looks different than my path, and that's
Right.
okay. In fact, it's awesome. M is for moments. This is where one of my talks, how you show up matters. This is where it was born. How you show up can change the trajectory of your life. You just need to choose those moments wisely because we can't always be on, right? The P is for patience and perspective. When we can show up with a more patient way of being to ourselves and to the people around us, we can show up with a more compassionate perspective. A is for acceptance and awareness. Excuse me, awareness and acceptance. Being aware, how are we feeling inside? What do we
Mm,
think is going on around us? How is that affecting us? Sometimes people can trigger us, sometimes we can trigger others, right? Just being aware and then accepting it. What are you going to do about it? The pool. You're aware that the temperature of this pool is not welcoming to you.
yes.
What are you going to do about it? Right? Okay. P. The first S is the single most critical component of the framework. It's silence the judger. Without this, the framework cannot exist because as soon as we go into judgment, that connection that we started out with, it gets severed, right? And so
Hmm.
I like to say when we find ourselves in a judgmental state, whether to ourselves or to somebody else, let's just try to turn the volume down on that judgment, right? The second S is stimulated. So the whole thing is this: we find ourselves in a moment, okay? We're connected, our mind is open. We realize we can make a difference either in our own lives or somebody else's life. We start to get stimulated, right? When you, Jen, are thinking about the Amplify Women work,
Yes.
you first started to think about that. I bet you were feeling a stimulation,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then that stimulation led to the I. You got interested.
Hmm.
I think I can do something. And then you started to get invested. This is when you're actually doing the work, building whatever. You're more committed. You're invested, right?
Hmm.
And then intention. Intentionality is your motor, it's what moves you forward. This is where you do whatever it is that you're going to do, which leads us to the O, onward and upward. Because when we do this, whatever it is, what actually happens, this good deed, this good work that we're doing, oxytocin and dopamine start to fire off in the brain.
Hmm.
It's natural mood boosters. Well, think about your best ideas that come to you, your best work. Does it come to you when you're in a positive mindset or a negative mindset? a
Mm.
positive mindset, right? And that's how we get to onward and upward. Now, the N is new heights and horizons. And this is imagine what your life could look like. Imagine what the world would look like if we all committed to showing up with just a little bit more compassion, first to ourselves and then the people around us. Imagine what kind of world we could be living in if we all just chose to start with compassion. There it is. That's the framework.
Oh, and you know what? Like to answer your question, it would be a lot better if we all just started with compassion with ourselves, with others. Yeah, it would be, I don't have anything else to say, but it would be much, much better than,
Much better.
yeah, it would be much, much more peace, more love, more joy, more happiness. There's a lot that would be healed, right? We've talked a lot about healing.
Mhm.
So hearing that and hearing you talk about it, like I've seen YouTube, right? I've done a lot of research with you on your brand, and but there is a download, Amy. There is a definite download. Like hearing you talk about it live, it's just
Mm.
a whole other deal. So my wish for you is just much more, many more large platforms to come so that we can spread the good word about starting with compassion.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course. So kind of tying it all together, right? So we have compassion. You have no more hiding. Everyone, I'm going to welcome you to go to Amy's new site, by the way, startwithcompassion.com, because you aren't hiding on that site either. Like, I've never said this to you, but like, you are there. Like, you are so, like, right front and center. And it's so exciting. Like, every time I look at it, I'm like, I'm almost like, "Yee!" Like I get gleeful, I get really excited for you. So, with your learnings, right, what do you hope that the reader takes away from your chapter and your
Mm.
whole philosophy about not hiding anymore? What do you hope that they take away?
Yeah. One is that if there's any if there's any room for forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
for toward yourself or toward others, there's such grace, there's such beauty, there's such release and forgiveness, right? To just take some time and sit in that because to me, forgiveness is the first step of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other is to really sit back and think if you're not living the life that you want today, what might that life look like when you close your eyes and you envision the life that you want? Like your heart wants, your heart. That what would what can you let go to make that happen? Because in that opening story in the chapter, Peter with all of his toys, holding on to all of his toys is so sweet. Our body, our soul, our energy, our mind, our heart, it can only hold so much. Okay. So by letting stuff go, not in hatred, not in anger, not in resentment, but in a thank you, I learned what I needed to, let me let you go so that I can make room for the goodness because there's so much goodness all around each and every one of us. But if we don't let go of this stuff that's holding us back, holding us down, there's no room for the bright, beautiful light to shine through.
Mm. Yeah, you go back full circle on the 50-pound pack and the pool analogy. Like, you can't hold on to a 50-pound pack in a pool that is uncomfortable, right? Because you can't, like, how can you have your light shine if you're so encumbered?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You're so weighed down. That's like what I keep seeing. You said you're a visual person. I see someone that's just like can't move, like moving through like quicksand. They can't, like the light is all stuck there. And so I guess this whole dark December, now it's this juxtaposition of the dark and the light. You had your dark December, and I don't think you're there anymore, and you're not hiding. So, how has this shown up in other areas of your life? This, like, no more hiding, this lateness. I mean, for me, I just shared with everybody, go to the website because It's super light. I mean, it's your colors, it's your brand, but like there's a lightness to it. It's a very different feel for me. So how has that shown up in other areas, the idea of no more hiding?
Yeah, I think um I f- I feel like I'm more quiet inside, you know?
Hmm.
Like for so much of my life, um I feel like I worked so hard to be like I wanted to be heard. When you grow up with a speech impediment and you're told you're stupid, you're
Mm.
told you're not able to get your words out, and so people are finishing your stories for you. And they're doing it out of kindness, right? But you may feel like you're not seen and you're truly not being heard, right? And then to be able to, like, I wanted for so long, like, I'm going to be the loudest in the room. I'm going to be the first to talk. I'm going to
Got
be,
it.
right? Like, darn it, you're going to hear me. And I don't
Yes.
feel that anymore. I'm like, I'm okay to not be the loudest. I'm okay to talk last. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like I don't have to show or prove or any of that to anybody anymore. And so there's this quietness inside me now that is really helping me not, I don't know, is that making sense?
Oh,
Yes.
totally. It's
Yeah.
like you don't feel the need to be the loudest to prove that you have a story that you can articulate, that you're clear, that you can get your words out, whatever. Now it's like, I don't need to prove that to you. You know, I have a story, I have power within me, I have grit, I have strength, I have all the tools all within me. And then when it does come out, it doesn't need to be like ferocious. It can be that quiet strength we talked about.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like there's been some like in in the past, there's been uncomfortableness for me with men.
Mm.
Um, and that I don't have that now. I used to always go to fear with men. And I just don't like it's that's really quieted down. There are times where like, the dark alley and you're like,
Of
oh,
course, like like going back to Spidey sense, like your
yeah,
Spidey sense
yeah.
is up, you know what I mean?
I mean, there's times where like it's real, but it's not. I don't go to fear like I used to. And it wasn't just with men. Driving on the freeway, I would be scared. Like I just ran fear. Like I just ran. It was like something that ran through me, And I just don't, I'm not scared like I used to be. And I'll tell you what, it's empowering, it's liberating. And it's funny because we've talked about the 50-pound pack, right? The weight is not on me. The weight is in me. It's like a grounding force.
Ooh. I felt that like to my toes. Like I felt that one like definitely all through my body. Wow, that was really cool. Um, we've shared this many times with many different, guests, but I want to hear your answer to what are 1 to 2 ways that women can be braver at work.
Yeah. To speak your truth
Mm-hmm.
in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. And I'm going to give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a meeting with an executive recently, and the person said something that I would call an a little bit more on the uninformed, judgmental side.
Yep.
And I I sat there, I heard it, and then I just said, I disagree with that statement. No justification, no apology, no nothing. There it wasn't emotional, just I disagree with that statement. This is what actually took place. And that's something that I struggled to do in the past. I struggled to speak my truth. and if I did it like clawing with emotion of uh, like forcing myself to be brave instead of, again, just sitting in that quiet grounding power of, that's actually not what happened. Let me tell you what happened, you know? So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is, um, what are you doing for you? Like, what are you doing? Like, women, what's that thing that lights you up?
Mm-hmm.
And are you prioritizing that? Like, really, are you prioritizing that? And if you're not, okay, but what can you shift? Because that is your battery.
Mm-hmm.
That's you charging your battery. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this morning, my Peloton bike, 20 minutes. I could have justified from here to there. I don't have time for that. Yes, I do. What am I going to move to later in the day so that I can get my Peloton cycle in? I'm sure when I started out my face was a little red because I had jumped on my bike, then got in the shower, and then was here. I literally have a fan on my face so that I can put makeup on. I'm sweaty, and you continue to sweat. But I had
Yeah.
to let my ego go. I had to let my ego go. Oh yeah, Amy, you know what? You may be a little red still, but you know, that bike gives me so much. So I would say those two things.
I have this specific situation. We don't have time today, maybe for a future podcast.
Okay.
Uh, where sometimes people will trigger at me at work, and then I get that like lioness that comes out, like starts to growl and feel like she has to fight,
Mhm.
and claw to feel like she has ground. And what I have taken away from today's conversation, many, many things, but is the quiet strength, right? That I can disagree and be articulate without being argumentative or
Mhm.
fierce, and that actually there's more power in not. I don't think there's anything wrong with being emotional when it's placed, but often women will get mislabeled when they're emotional throughout like a rebuttal or throughout like a negotiation or throughout a disagreement. And
Mhm.
I think what you've just highlighted for me is I may be being misconstrued as that that woman, like that argumentative woman, rather than coming from a place of quiet strength. So I thank you.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. Yeah. And that trigger, that is so real, right? That to me is where the A comes in, the awareness.
Yeah.
When we pause and we go inside and we say, we get curious, not judgmental, to not judge that we're feeling this, but to honor it and get curious because it's not about them. They were just being themselves,
Yeah.
right? But why did that trigger us?
Yeah, like taking the time to be aware rather than
Yeah.
lashing out or getting over emotional or whatever, right? There's a place for everything, but I love the idea of the quiet strength.
Yeah.
So let's like pause on that one. Future, maybe if anybody has interest in like us keep exploring that topic with me and Amy or Amy and I, like please let me know. Send me a DM or send me an email at hello@bravewomenatwork.com. So, Amy, where can women find you, connect with you, learn more about Start with Compassion? I know there are for future books and you're birthing a blog. Like there's a lot of good, beautiful creative life force flowing through you right now. So, where can they connect with you?
Oh, thank you for that. So, you already mentioned my website, but I'll do it again.
Yep.
Startwithcompassion.com. You can all reach me at Amy at startwithcompassion.com. I'm
Mhm.
on almost every social media platform. Start with Compassion. Okay.
Mhm.
You're going to want to look for the heart with the SWC in the middle of it. And don't forget, I co-host a podcast. I'm telling myself, don't forget, by the way. I co-host a podcast called the Infuse Compassion podcast. So the co-creator, Mark Carpenter, he and I host that together. And we're just on a mission I'm on a mission, we're on a mission to just create a more compassionate world. So that's a little bit about how people can find me. So please reach out. Let's talk about creating a more compassionate world. Yeah.
I love it. Keep on keeping on with creating a compassionate world. And I will be one of your students. And I thank you so much for being part of the latest Brave Woman at Work book, Lessons in Letting Go. And again, congratulations on being everyone a 9 category best-selling author. So keep on keeping on, Amy. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing and for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, that does it for my conversation with Amy today. I hope you found our discussion both valuable and inspiring. Here are a few questions for you until next time. How can you start with compassion today with yourself and others? And what masks do you need to drop so you are no longer hiding your brilliance and who you truly are? As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, start with compassion, and be brave.